Let's get some more analysis on the G7 summit. Gregory Stiles is a global policy analyst and specialises on the G7 at Sheffield University in the UK. He joins us live from the summit in Japan. Gregory, many thanks for joining us today. This is essentially a summit of the leaders of the world's richest countries. What is the point of the meeting like this?
The original point when it first began back in the 1970s was to create an informal environment for the leaders of some of the most industrialized countries to build relationships with each other, to find common cause for some of the world's most disparate problems, essentially.
Now we know...
At the moment, at this summit, one of the key items is clearly economic growth and also foreign policy issues to do with this conflict in Syria and Iraq.
OK, as you say, chasing growth, one of the main priorities right now for the G7 nations. But they're not actually all on the same page, are they, on how to go about it?
No, they're not. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who's hosting the summit, is trying to convince the leaders of these other 6 nations to go for a economic spending plan using government money to boost growth. But he's going up against Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, who does not want to do that, who is very reticent to actually use that kind of economic stimulus and would rather avoid using Germany's money to get it into debt, such as the other countries have done.
Now, we know China is conspicuously absent from this G7, despite having an economy that is larger than Japan, Germany and the UK combined. Where do the G7 countries stand on China? Do they see it as an opportunity or a threat?
It's difficult to say. The grouping of the G20, which is including China, seen as more of a forum for negotiations and issues to do with China. But what you have seen here in Japan, particularly with the East China Sea conflict and the territorial disputes around islands, is that China, even though it's not included in the G7, has been issuing messages to the G7 not to touch this kind of issue, even though it's pretty high on Shinzo Abe's agenda.
The G7 also excluding Russia. Russia clearly an important player when it comes to the crisis in Syria and so much else. Will we see a G8 with Russia anytime soon?
That is the interesting question. Prime Minister Abe has a very close personal relationship with Vladimir Putin, and there has been speculation that he will try to convince the other leaders at the G7 summit to try and bring Russia back in from the cold. The speculation, I think, is too early. I think opposition from America and from the UK and from the European Union will be too high for welcoming Russia back in at the moment. In particular, though, what most people seem to underestimate is that Russia probably does not want to be invited back in. The narrative that it's the West versus Russia imposing sanctions has played well domestically for Vladimir Putin, and he may not wish to actually rejoin the club at this time.
OK, interesting. Thanks for giving us your thoughts. Gregory Stiles there from Sheffield University joining us in Japan. Many thanks.